So you hear this phrase all the time at work, right? My door is always open. But let's be honest, is it really open? Today, we're going to dig into some amazing research by James Detert and Ethan Burris that gets to the bottom of what actually makes employees speak up with their ideas. I want you to think about this for a second. You're in a meeting, you're at your desk, and you see it. A better way to do something, a problem nobody else has spotted. You start to open your mouth. You do that quick mental calculation of the pros and cons, and you just stay quiet. If that sounds even a little familiar, well, you are definitely not alone. And look, this isn't some small, trivial thing. This employee silence, it has a huge cost. We're talking about missed opportunities, festering problems, and a total lack of innovation. In a world that's moving at lightning speed, companies just can't afford to have their best ideas trapped in their employees' heads. And this quote from the legendary Peter Senge, it just nails it. The old idea that a handful of executives at the top can have all the answers, that's completely over. For an organization to survive, let alone thrive, it absolutely needs ideas and insights from everyone. So figuring out why people stay silent isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have. Okay, so let's be really clear about what we mean by employee voice. This isn't just about complaining or venting. The researchers define it as a choice, a voluntary act, to share ideas that are meant to make things better. And that's inherently risky, isn't it? Because more often than not, it means you're challenging how things are currently done. You're constantly weighing the benefit against the risk of, being seen as a troublemaker. Which brings us right to the heart of this study. If getting employees to speak up is so important, but also so risky for them, what can leaders actually do about it? What are the real behaviors that send a clear signal that it's not just okay to speak up, but it's actually welcome? To figure this out, the researchers did something pretty cool. They basically set up a showdown between two very popular, well-known leadership styles. You can think of it like a head-to-head competition to see which approach truly unlocks the door to employee ideas. Okay, so in one corner, you've got the transformational leader. This is the big picture, charismatic boss, the one who paints this incredible vision of the future and gets everyone fired up to make it happen. And in the other corner, you have the manager who practices openness. Now, this leader might not be giving grand speeches, but their behaviors are super consistent. They actively listen, they seriously consider ideas, and this is key, they actually do something with the input they get. So who's your money? Well, the results came in and they were not ambiguous at all. In fact, they were crystal clear. It turns out that having a big, inspiring vision is great, but the real winner was something much more grounded, much more tangible. Yep, the winner is managerial openness. The study, which looked at over 3,000 employees, found that these simple, consistent behaviors of being open were way more powerful and way more connected to employees speaking up than the charismatic style of transformational leadership. Inspiration is nice, but it's the day-to-day actions of listening and responding that really move the needle. Okay, so that's the what. But the really interesting question is why? Why is being an open manager so much more effective? What's the secret ingredient that makes those behaviors so powerful? Well, the researchers found a very clear answer. And that secret ingredient is psychological safety. This is the deep-seated belief that you won't get punished or humiliated for speaking your mind. It's the feeling that you can offer an idea, ask a tough question, or even admit a mistake without it coming back to bite you. Without that feeling of safety, most people will just default to what the researchers called defensive silence. So this creates a really clear three-step path. It's not a straight line from a manager's action to an employee speaking up. First, the manager is open. They listen. They take ideas seriously. Second, those actions create a feeling of psychological safety in the employee. And only then, as a third step, does that employee feel secure enough to actually offer their idea. That safety piece is the essential bridge you can't skip over. But wait, there's more. The study uncovered another really fascinating layer here, a twist, actually, that shows us exactly who is paying the closest attention to all of these leadership signals. Now, you might think that your star players, your top performers, are confident enough to speak up no matter what their boss is like. But the research found the exact opposite. It turns out your best employees are the most sensitive to these leadership cues. They're paying the closest attention to whether it's truly safe to speak up, and they change their behavior in a big way based on what they see. This chart just lays it all out, plain and simple. Look at the high performers. When their manager is open, they speak up a ton. When the manager isn't open, they clam right up. The difference is huge. Now look at the lower performers. That effect is much, much smaller. So what's the big takeaway here?
A closed-off leadership style disproportionately silences your absolute best talent.
So, what does this all mean for you if you're a leader? First, your official open door policy means nothing if your actions say otherwise. Your behaviors are what create safety. Second, you have to practice listening without getting defensive. That's a real skill. Third, you gotta close the loop. Even if you don't use an idea, show that you heard it and explain why you're not moving forward. That builds incredible trust. And finally, make these behaviors a real part of how you evaluate and train your leaders.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. As a leader, it's not enough for your door to be technically unlocked. The real question is whether your everyday actions make people feel safe enough to actually walk through it. Is your door just open, or is it truly psychologically welcoming?